So I'm super excited about this, guys, and what a really cool opportunity.
No.
Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. And I'm hosting this podcast with.
My name is Emilie. I am a part of the UN students in Norway and Trondheim, and I'm also a civil engineering student at NTNU.
And my name is Mats Heggen. I'm also a student, and I'm also a member of the UN Students Association in Norway, in Trondheim.
You are even the vice president in Trondheim.
Yeah, vice president. Yeah,
That's
and
good to
I
know.
study musicology.
Okay, my name is Princess, and I'm a student at NTNU and also part of the Sustainability Center here. And we are very glad to have you here today. It's actually a privilege to have this collaboration with us on the UN Week. So what do you have to say about the UN Week and the targeted goals? Because we are really eager to know what's about.
I'm really glad you asked. So the UN Theme Week is a week held by the UN students in Trondheim for the entire week. It is 4 days in total, and we are now on day 3. So each day focuses on a couple of sustainability goals. So we are focusing on goal 4, 5, and 10 regarding education, equality, and less inequality, and specifically then on 5.
Yeah, our main goal today for this podcast is the goal number 5, which is about gender inequality or equality between the genders, and more specifically about empowering women to pursue leadership positions, both politically, economically, and in public life.
Yeah, just a stronger position in society.
Yeah, in general.
In general.
Okay, then that's very interesting to know. With goal 4, 5, and 10, it basically means that we're empowering girls through education and also bridging the gap of inequality on the global field. And that's very interesting to know. So it's going to be a long talk today, and we will be happy to have you comment, ask questions. There'll be a 5 minutes after the whole discussion to ask questions, so also share your thoughts about what we are discussing today.
Yeah. So if you have any comments, any questions, anything, remember to post them.
Yeah. It's a very broad subject, so I don't actually agree. It's difficult to talk about everything in 30 minutes.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have to choose out the most important parts for us, at least.
So to set the ball rolling, what do you think about women empowerment in Norway?
I suppose we need to talk a little bit about history first.
Yeah, and Norway is actually one of the most equal countries in the world. And with that, I think it's important that we don't act as a kind of savior, but more as an example for other countries. Because as one of the richest countries in the world, we have a lot of resources that it's important to know that most other countries in the world don't have. So it's much easier for us to work on such matters than it will be for many other countries, which have not less important matters, but more pressing matters to focus on. Yeah.
Definitely. I think you have a really big point, a really good point there.
Yeah.
But one thing I'd like to point out is that there is one resource that every country in the world has, and that is women. And women and girls are a resource that not every country is actually using. But the road to equality has been really long and really hard.
Absolutely.
I think that we can start or have a really quick recap on the history from the 18th century.
Yeah.
Because equality has been on the political agenda for quite some time.
We could start even earlier, but we don't have a lot of time today. Yeah.
Because we have fought for equal salary, for equal work. We have fought for equal legal rights, more women in leading positions. But one of the earliest official feminists, wasn't that Ibsen?
Yeah. The history of equality is actually intertwined with the history of Norway as a nation. So it's quite prevalent.
So it's quite noticeable that Norway has had past prime ministers who has been in power. So do you like to say anything about that?
Yeah, I think we can start a bit earlier first and then get back to that later on. Because I'm sure everyone, at least in Norway, has heard about Ibsen, which made a play called A Doll's House, or Et Dukkehus. Dukkehjem. And Ibsen is considered as one of Norway's first feminists. So much so that actually in China, feminism is known as Noraism. And for those who don't know, Nora is the main character in Et Dukkehjem, this play.
It's really cool.
And in the 1800s, women's role in society was not noticeable, not equal as it is today. They did not have the right to work, and they were actually without any legal capacity. The men had made all the decisions for them in their daily lives.
Yeah, they had all political rights.
Yeah.
Women were basically just housewives and birthing machines.
Absolutely. And this was the first wave of feminism. Many other authors also joined Ibsen later on. And this first wave made the foundation for the second wave of feminism, which was not to change the position of women in marriage, which the first wave was about, but to change, to fight for women to have the same rights as men. And maybe you can say something about that, Emilia?
Yeah, sure, I can. Yeah. So the biggest change we had in feminism, or in just equality, that was around the 1970 shift. So before this, women were more stay-at-home wives, taking care of the children. They didn't go especially much to school, except the husmorskole, the stay-at-home wife school. They weren't politicians, they weren't lawyers, doctors, anything like that. On a general basis.
That's interesting to know.
It is, but afterwards, women started taking a more active place in politics. So, for example, we can say that we have Gro Harlem Brundtland. She was the first female prime minister in Norway, and she became a prime minister already around 1981. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good to know. So it means that there were role models before Annie Solberg then. So she kind of played a role model character for a lot of women in Norway to be empowered. And now we had Prime Minister Annie Solberg, and now Annie Solberg too is like a role model to the young girls coming up. And it's quite interesting to know. So from history, we had a feminine play into development or into political decision and coming in. And now coming in, Annie Solberg too is a role model for the youth coming. That's very, very interesting to know.
It is. Yeah. But I would also like to point out that going from history to the present, even though Norway is one of the world's most equal countries, we're not entirely equal yet. For example, men still earn more than women. And lots of the minimum pensioners in Norway are women. Actually, pensioners, that is retired people. And 1 out of 4 females who are retired, 1 out of 5, are minimum pensioners.
That's good to know.
So, and also there are large gender differences at the top of the business world.
Yeah.
So we see still that Norway isn't equal yet.
Yes.
And also one of the changes we saw during the last half of the 1900s was the war, where the men had to leave their houses to go to war, and the women had to stay at home and take on responsibilities that the men previously did.
They had to substitute the men, take the men's job, and that was actually a bit of a turning point for women's voting rights, because especially after World War I, there hadn't all the men had to go to war. There was a huge war in Europe, so the women had to substitute the men and take their job, and that's when they actually got to show what they're good for. And after this, many European countries gave women the right to vote. I think Norway was pretty early. I think they gave women the right to vote in parliamentary elections in 1913. Countries such as Germany, France, and Great Britain, they gave much later. I think maybe even after World War II.
Okay, then that's very good to know. So it means that with time passing through, women has been very active in every sector, both political, economic, and even social. Because I don't even know. So do you think in Norway we have women in military now?
Yes.
So we even have women protecting the country, like with security and stuff. Then that is very good to know. So with all this empowerment in Norway, with everything going on, what do you think are some of the benefits coming down from political, economically, and socially? What are some of the benefits today?
I'd say I think that the former Prime Minister Jens Stoltenberg, he was the Prime Minister before Erna Solberg. I think he had a really good quote regarding the benefit and the resource that women are to society. So what he said, and I've translated this to English, is that if Norwegian women's participation in the labor force were to be reduced to the OECD average, which is the Organization for Co-Economic Operation and Development, the value of this production loss would correspond to our entire oil wealth, including that which is underground.
Oh,
That's a lot.
that's a lot.
That is a lot. And you can just imagine all the countries in the world have women. There is not a country in the world without women, meaning that all the countries in the world have their own oil resource. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's like, I think women are with high population over the world. So if the world got this amount of resource, then the world should be rich with women being involved in everything.
Yes, definitely. And I also think that this is a really underestimated resource. I heard somebody say that in 1969, Norway discovered a resource that made us the richest country in the world. And it's very natural to think oil, because Norway has lots of oil and Norway is pretty rich. But no, the resource that they meant were actually women and girls participating in society equal to men.
So economically, Norwegian economy is doing very well, and I think it's a role model for other countries out there to look up to Norway, to involve more women and empower women into development, and involve more women into, like, make use of the human resources in the so it will really help.
Yeah, Norwegian women and men, for that sake, they are taxpayers for one, contributing to the welfare state that we see in Norway today. Yeah. But they also contribute to making the wheel spin. Imagine what Norway would be if half its machine fell away. If all the females that are doctors, teachers, lawyers, politicians, they work at the local Rema, what if all of them were to have to stay at home? What would happen to the Norwegian gross domestic product?
It would fall apart.
It would, definitely. Norway, as we see it today, would never exist without women.
Yeah, and it's also noticeable to know that Norway survives a lot on our tax. So if we have every woman staying home in the capacity of being a woman, then there will be low tax and less revenue for the government to operate on. So right now we have every woman out there trying their best to contribute their best to the economy, and it's going to increase the government revenue for everything. We have good roads, good policies, good healthcare system and everything, and it's very good to know.
But I think also, sorry Mats, what were you going to say?
No, just continue.
I was going to say that it's not just gold fields and forests out there. That's a Norwegian saying, by the way. Because we aren't entirely equal yet, men and women, and specifically not when it comes to economic equality. Yeah. And I think that's a really important subject we need to address.
Yeah. I think most people in Norway have seen DNB's, like the Norwegian Bank's campaign about She Invests.
Hashtag Hun investerer.
Yeah. I don't have the exact statistics in front of me, but the amount of women that invests is a lot lower than the amount of men that invests.
That is entirely true.
And this,
Sorry, you go.
Okay. And this is intertwined with what you mentioned earlier, with more women being on the lower side of the pensioners because they don't have these assets saved up from investing.
That's entirely true. So the thing is that a huge majority of the stock market is or privately owned assets on the Oslo Stock Exchange is owned by men. So the Norwegian bank, DNB, they launched a campaign called She Invest, where they basically say that women can't rule the world if we don't own it. So the background for the campaign She Invests is that in 2018, 2.5 billion Norwegian kroners were distributed as risk capital to help new entrepreneurs get on their feet, basically. The thing is that only 2% of the companies, or only 2% of this money went to companies that only consist of female entrepreneurs, whilst on the other hand, 80% of the money went to companies with only male entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was there was a huge inequality among the entrepreneurs, and then DNB thought that they have to launch a campaign to help women take control of their own economy, to help them invest. I think that a lot of investment is centered around not knowing enough. And then wanting not to put your money out in the stock market.
So that's also, I would say that's also a way of empowering women
It
to
is.
invest and get more. It's not, investment is not just about guys or men, it's about women and everybody. So if men are making it, then I think women, we should also make it through investment. That's very interesting to know.
Yeah, I think that's also a part of the way to get into these leadership positions, because through investing you get a place in boards and in decision making.
You definitely do. And I would just like to say before we go forward that on a general basis, women are on a more weaker economic ground than men. We distribute our money differently. So men are, I can say it this way, that the executive vice president for the retail market at DNB, called Ingjerd Spiten, said that DNB has seen through their own customer data there is a general imbalance between women and men. For example, that men has a larger net worth than women, that they receive 23 billion in capital income more than women, and that in 2017 the difference between women's and men's gross wealth were 1,216 billion NOK, which is equivalent to a state budget.
Okay, so that's good to know. And just we have to move because of the time, So you have like 10 minutes before we ask questions, and we have to go. So politically, first, really like what? How do you think Norway has benefited from women empowerment politically?
I'd say firstly that female leaders are profitable. This is proven. According to the UN, it's proven that by strengthening the position of women, economic growth and development increase. So economic growth follows. And according to the UN website, a study showed that including female leaders in the board of a company increased the profit by 15%. And this also increased the company's stocks.
Yeah.
Mats?
I think we do have examples from own, like we have two female, very recent female state prime ministers, Gro Brundtland and Erna Solberg, which I think for many women today have stood as a kind of forbilde, example for other women to follow.
That's definitely true.
Yeah.
Okay, and
also, if I could say something,
sure.
it is that in politics, it is crucial to have women in decision making. We could also see this over the change in the 1970s, that when more women came into politics, for example, under Brundtland's government, she had a female, it's known as the female government, because it was the first time in history there were not more than 60% men in it. I think that women stand as an example to other women.
Yeah.
So it's still, yes.
And actually it is required by law to have at least 40% women in the parliament.
It is.
Since 2006.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. And you had some experience, because you're a politician yourself.
Yeah.
You have some experience that it can be difficult to get women into politics.
Yeah, I'm actually a part of youth politics, which is where everything starts, where we educate the youth to become politicians. And at least in our municipality, we have a problem with recruiting women. So we are mostly guys in the board. So we do have work to do that. It's important to start early on.
It is.
Yeah, in education too.
Okay, so that's good. So in some, it's like women being in decision making had helped bring about good policies, and also they make good policies to empower women, and gender quotas for organizations for them to involve women in their activities and institution. It also like gender should be women are being chosen into this organization if they are qualified for that position. And that is not bad. So women who think they are capable to be part of development, they don't stay at home. They are also given the platform, and the quota absorbs them into this organization. Yes. That's good to know.
The quota was an incentive to get women into society, into leading jobs. This was also a really important part of the big change that happened around the 1970s to get women out of the home and into the society.
Yeah.
So socially, what can we say? Because we have like 4 minutes.
Socially, it's a very broad subject, and we have not a lot of time, as you say. But it's broad. It can be like in a household, where if you do chores as a dad, you are seen as a helpful dad. But if you do chores as a woman, you're just a mom. And if you are watching a child, you are involved as a dad. And as a mom, you're just a mom. And like if you buy fast food, you're fun as a dad. And as a mom, you might be seen as lazy because you don't cook food. And on a larger scale, like I think it's difficult not to mention our current situation with the war in Ukraine, that men are required to stay and fight in the country, but the women are required or encouraged to leave. And I think that's a problem on two different points. One, it's implying that women are not capable of fighting by encouraging them to leave. And on the second hand, it's also a matter of gender inequality, like because
forcing women to stay by and fight.
Forcing men to stay and fight. So just because you're a man, you have to stay and fight. So that's like the fifth goal is what we call it, right? So
yes, that's a really good point, actually.
So we have like 3 minutes. So it's going. So socially, I would like to sum up like. The government has really helped bring policies like the maternity, which has really helped the maternity and paternity leave. I also contribute by saying it has helped both parental genders to contribute to bringing up these kids. Like the kid will have both the mother and the father love, not the responsibility of just the mother in bringing up the kid, and which is it's a very good idea. Because I see a lot of fathers out there pulling the one and trying to make the kids stop crying, and it's very good to know because they have to stay home and take care of their kids, so whilst the woman is also doing their best at work. So that's very interesting to know. So the last point before our time is up, and we welcome more comments and questions. What can you say about gender equality and not gender bias as we opt to achieve women empowerment? So what can we say about gender equality and not gender bias in the long run? In achieving women empowerment, how do we make sure we achieve gender equality, not being gender biased?
It is important that we don't overgo ourselves, if I can say that, and make. I think this is the misconception about feminism, that it makes women better than men, which I think is it's not the intent by the word, but it's important that we don't push the men down in order to empower women. Yeah,
I also think it's important not to divide it even more, like by creating instead of creating groups only for women, I like to create for everyone. So by saying, for example, buy one for women, you are implying that it's just for women, but by then creating a bias. Yeah.
I also think that that was a really good point, including men into feminism.
Yeah.
So to add up before the few seconds, I also think that we should focus on achieving gender equality and not make the popularity of women empowerment reduce the masculine voice too, because their voice needs to be heard. So all in the long run, we will end up going back to achieving men empowerment, which we don't want to be having discussion now. So we should be equal and balanced. And we don't have to be gender biased in any sector. Okay, so we have a lot of questions here from Courtney, Anna, Lina. Wow, nice question. So we'll take Courtney's question. What other SDGs do you see?
This is a good one.
This is a connection to this very important topic. So I would like to read the question out for everyone to know. What other SDGs do you see? What other SDGs do you see a connection to for this very important topic? Sorry.
That would be specifically an SDG 5, which is right here, regarding equality between the genders. I would like to point out some of the recent campaigns that you probably have noticed in news and such, and that are women changing their first name to Arne at LinkedIn. So the background information for this is that from the series Lykkeland, we see a woman with a degree within economics and good grades, and still she can't get a job because she is a woman. And then she changes her name to Arne on her applications because her real name is Anna. And then she gets a job at once. This is, of course, a series. It's not real, but I think many women can relate to Anna. They feel like they have been discriminated based on their gender. Some people may think that you don't actually have qualifications because of your gender.
Absolutely.
So we can see female politicians changing their first name or placing the name Arne in front of their actual name on LinkedIn.
Yeah, even the Prime Minister did
solidarity, to raise awareness around this.
Yeah, I think also we have it logos here. The number 4, like education. I think that's also important. At least in Norway we have come very far at that point, but in developing countries it's important to start there to educate women and men in order to achieve equality.
And also make sure that we need to have more women in leading positions. This is something that I myself is especially encouraged about, because I think that...
I think we have to take their questions. So what are the key policies to bridge the gap in Norway? By Anna, thank you for your question. So what are the key policies? So I'd like to mention of the Nordic gender model, which have you can just take a look at that. So it has really helped. Most of the European countries look up to the Nordic gender model, which also helps in bridging the equality gap. So you can take a look at that, which has really helped. That involves the paternity and the maternity leaves, involving women in decision making, involving women in institution, and a lot. So that's fine. And the next question is, Linia, do you feel like it has been a disadvantage for you to be a woman if you want to be a leader?
This is really relevant for what I was talking about with the Arne campaign, that it can be a disadvantage to be a woman to get up and forth in society. For example, there are more top leaders in Norway called Arne than there are female top leaders. And also, only 40% of the 14% of the biggest companies in Norway are led by female managers. So this gives, this implies that that it is difficult for women to become leaders in Norway.
Yeah.
Okay, I also add up that I think the society gives the platform for women to be absorbed as leaders. But also, as an individual woman, you need to assume or take the stance of building your capabilities to get that position. Because the society we have, like we've got recent role models to look up to, and they got the capability to be there, and they did incredibly amazing in that position. So I think Norway has really done well and empowered and trained a lot of girls out there. So just find yourself there and build your capabilities to be there.
I think that we have hit 30 minutes now, but I think we can take one more question.
So that's the last question so that we can just end this podcast.
Yeah.
Have you had any personal experience with gender equality in your personal lives? By Naomi.
I actually had one experience myself. Just some weeks ago, we had an election in our youth politics Munich capital, where we elected a new board, and there was two deputy leaders, and one of them was elected. Who was elected was a female, but she was voted out by the board. She was capable and she had qualifications, but then later on, people just went on apologizing. Oh no, it was not because you were a female. It was because we found something more qualified, and they started apologizing. But that made her feel that she was good but not good enough. And then when she was offered a place as a board member instead of a deputy leader, she lost all motivation and she just didn't want to join.
That's good to know. So I think my own personal experience would be way back in high school when I thought I was competing with a guy, and at the moment within me I felt like he's a guy and he deserves it. So I was like, during my reading my manifesto, I was like, yeah, I'm a girl, but I don't know if you guys are going to vote for me. And I think he would do exceedingly better. So maybe I should just vice him. Just that. But that was like low confidence at then, because I didn't know what I was capable of. And growing up over the years, I'm really building my capabilities, getting to know that, whoa, I'm a woman and I can go in for any position So it's quite good to know.
Because being discriminated based on your gender, it's really just bullshit. I can say we can summarize it in that. I have one last thing I'd like to say to this question. My turn to answer, I suppose. And that is that I don't have one specific experience with inequality. But there is something that I have noticed that annoys me on a general basis, and that is that women, it's so much easier to talk about women as girls. For example, in my study, I study civil engineering. I'm in my 4th year now. I think that it falls people really easily to say that, yeah, the girls in my group, they are blah blah blah, or the girl that I'm sitting next to is, or something. Basically saying girl instead of woman, but you're not saying necessarily boy to a person at the same age. And I think that addressing a woman as a girl, whilst a man that is that with an equal age as a man instead of a boy, that is minimalizing women. And that is something that annoys me, and I think that I don't think people do it on purpose, but I think it's something that we should start to think about.
Okay, so I think we are way beyond time. And thank you very much, Emily and Matt, for joining us and for having this great discussion. It's also a form of education for everyone out there to be empowered to know what is going on in Norway, to have all this realization that, hey, you're a girl and you can do it, and you can do it maybe even better. So take chances, build your capabilities, get to know more, get there, and also help in development. So as men, we need both hands on decks to make everything work. Thank you very much for today's session and today's podcast. It was nice having you at the center.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.